Hey, when was the last time you drew a picture? And I'm counting things like doodling in the margins of your notes or drawing on the bill at a restaurant. Maybe you picked up a rock and started scraping it on the ground to make a picture, like we're in the classic Paleolithic era. Maybe you have a habit of artistically autographing public places, big or small, you sneaky, sneaky guy. Maybe you are serious about art and you make it for a living. Or maybe you're someone who never even thinks to illustrate at all. Hello, everybody. My name is Jimmy, and I want to talk to y'all about drawing and how even if you don't consider yourself an artist, it can be a pretty solid habit to build up for yourself. I want to talk about my own experiences, how you can get into it with some very accessible methods, and how even if you don't feel artistically inclined, why you should give it a chance. Tasty. And to prove how easy it is, I'm going to have in the corner of the video here me drawing in real time. I'm going to edit this video to completion, and then once I'm done, I'm going to watch it back by myself and film my hands doing the magic for the entire length of the video. If you feel so inclined, it would be so cool if you grabbed a pen and paper and joined me. No pressure though if you don't want to. And let's go ahead and just get right into it here. Now, I usually refer to myself as a casual artist. I don't take it too seriously. I don't get too upset when my vision doesn't fully pan out. Now, that's not to say I haven't spent the time on more detailed or ambitious works in the past. I've spent time, trying to get better at things like anatomy or perspective, which are very hard things to learn, things like that. It can get very frustrating sometimes when it doesn't quite, what you see in your head doesn't get translated to the paper quite so one-to-one, and it can be a bit discouraging. But in this video, I want to talk about casual drawing, the simple stuff, and I kind of want to target those who don't draw that often and why you shouldn't care about being an amazing artist and rather just do it for the fun of it. Because at the end of the day, everyone can be an artist if we just want to give it a shot. And I wouldn't even think about it that hard, I would just grab a pen and paper, draw whatever comes to mind, even if you don't think it'll look good. Because at the end of the day, this is a better use of 10 to 15 minutes than just sitting on that damn phone. Just let the pen do the work for you. Don't stress about how you're not an artist. And if you do draw for 10 or 15 minutes and you don't like it, well, that's a very small amount of your day that is gone now, and you could just toss it and try again tomorrow. Now, if you struggle with not knowing what to draw, that's okay, bud. I've got you covered. Got some tactics you can employ here. Now, I already mentioned draw what comes to mind first. I think this is the most fun idea. Even if what you're imagining sounds ridiculous, you won't actually know how ridiculous it is until you try and make it real. Maybe you think of very cutesy things like cute animals going on picnics. Maybe you have more of a crude side to your mind, no shame there. Or maybe you're into the abstract and you enjoy things like patterns, or maybe you like sceneries and landscapes. Whatever the case may be, just give it a shot. But if your mind truly feels empty and you're thinking man, I don't even know where to start, I don't know what to draw, I'm not a creative person, I would say look at just what's around you in the physical world. Maybe you have fun trinkets on your desk, or you have a very cute pet that you love so much that you think would be very easy to draw. Perhaps an object that has a lot of value to you, such as an instrument or a camera or a computer, really anything, I would also encourage you, if you're not an artist, to play around with what you're drawing with and what you're drawing on, You don't have to necessarily use a pencil and paper or paints and paintbrushes and a canvas. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned using a rock on the ground to make a little picture. That is kind of a good example here. But what I want to recommend would be a whiteboard and marker. You can get small whiteboards that usually will come with one black marker with an eraser for pretty cheap at various stores. And I find it fun to have something like that in your bedroom or maybe somewhere else in the house if you want to share it. The reason that I always recommend this one to people who don't necessarily draw a lot but maybe want to give it a shot is because it is so easy on a whiteboard to draw something, you don't like it, erase it, start over. It's very easy to avoid mess and ruining your piece with eraser marks and whatever. There's no eraser shavings or anything like that getting all over the desk and stuff. And you're also pretty limited with the whiteboard in terms of the color, texture, and techniques you can use. You don't have to take it very seriously. You can just draw in simple ways and make those little simple pictures come to life. And then if you don't like it, you can just erase it without wasting paper or whatever. And in my room, I keep a whiteboard on my wall. It's about 12 inches by 12 inches, just a square whiteboard. And I'll usually doodle on it and I'll leave it up for a while and I'll erase it to make something new. It's kind of like an ever-changing poster that I am in control of. Sometimes I'll draw one thing on it and I have a bunch of blank space. I'm not really feeling creative, so I'll just leave it and I'll come back like a day or 2 days later and I'll just add more to it until it gets filled up. And it's also really fun to have a whiteboard because if you have guests over, they can come and doodle something on there too or autograph it or whatever. That kind of thing can be really fun. And that is the kind of thing that can be very hard to erase. And that brings me to kind of the biggest downside of the whiteboard is that if you make something you really like, it can be so hard to want to erase it or even keep it on there because it's a whiteboard, but that's just part of the experience, and that makes me think that you're having fun drawing anyway. Now, of course, you can totally get away with finding whatever resources you have nearby. My all-time favorite way to casually doodle is using a stack of sticky notes and like a Sharpie marker. Sticky notes, I think, are very good as well because they are small and contained, and I find that it is often less intimidating to draw on a sticky note than a bigger sheet of paper or a canvas. Maybe you make a little doodle at work and you can show it to somebody next to you with the angle that you're not taking it very seriously. Maybe you draw like a funny portrait of your coworker or some other kind of funny thing like that, like a dog or a cat or something. You never know. Your silly drawing can maybe just make somebody smile or start a conversation. Maybe you have an individual that you have a little crush on and they might find that kind of thing funny too, or maybe you can make a little game out of it. They might want to draw something back, and sticky notes are just like, hand them one, got a little drawing for them right there. And I will say though, just be careful who you're giving that to. If you draw a funny portrait of someone and want to hand it to them, just know your audience. Some people maybe won't take kindly to that kind of thing, but just a little suggestion there. And I'll tell a quick story here. One time when I was working, and one of my coworkers, it was really slow, and one of my coworkers showed me and the rest of us a game called Is It a Mouse? And basically, everyone got a sticky note, and they had to illustrate their best depiction of a mouse with no reference images. And once everyone was done, we would line them all up, and then the judge deems whether or not your drawing is a mouse or not. And it sounds silly, but it's actually a lot of fun, especially because according to the judge, who had a background in like pest control and stuff, only one out of, I think, 6 of us drew a mouse. Everyone else was drawing rats. And it kind of sparked a lot of interesting conversation and controversy between us. So maybe give that a shot if you're in a group setting and everyone is bored and nobody wants to give ideas. And now I kind of want to touch on my own experiences with drawing a little bit. Now, I have loved drawing ever since I was a kid. I was always inspired by like the shows I was watching or the games I played growing up. And the earliest stuff that I can remember drawing, like when I was younger, would be making up new Pokemon that I would want to see in my game. So I would draw them myself, and I had like a composition notebook that was just like, lined paper full of my own Pokemon illustrations. I can't really remember what any of them looked like now, but I don't think Game Freak would have ever added them. And throughout the length of my childhood, I would keep drawing, just for fun whenever I felt like it. And then I think in 4th or 5th grade, I had this kind of invisible idea that I wanted to be like a comic illustrator or something like that. And I actually had this friend in elementary school at the time who I would make comic strips with. And I remember it very vaguely, but I'm pretty sure it was called something like Cat and T-Rex. And the main premise, the main shtick was just kind of there was a cat and a T-Rex. Shocking, I know. And they would just be doing various things, and usually the T-Rex was kind of dumber and sillier, and the jokes usually revolved around the T-Rex's arms and stuff, and the cat was always the wise guy who would deliver the punchline. Pretty silly, but at that time it was a lot of fun making those comic strips with my friend. And when we made them, we would distribute them to other friends around school. And now that I think about it, that was probably the first time in my life that I was making something for other people to see. And I wonder if anybody still has those comics. Probably not, but they would be one of ones, very rare if they do have them. And as I got older, hobbies and interests kind of come and go, but drawing and doodling is one of those ones that is so easy to pick up in most situations when I'm a little bored that it's kind of stuck with me for most of my life, even though I don't consider myself to be very talented. Now, like I said, I am not an amazing artist. I am not consistent with drawing in my sketchbooks. I go weeks without doing it sometimes, but like I said, at work or whatever, I'll make little doodles. And to be honest, making those little doodles without really thinking too hard about making it look perfect or nice, it sometimes yields better results, at least for what I'm wanting in my own mental. It's satisfying to just kind of, make some bogus real fast. Drawing is something that I hope I never stop doing. Even if I am not that consistent with it, I hope I can always just be ready to draw a little picture here and there. Even when I'm super old, I'm hoping that I'm still doodling for fun. And like that kind of, I mentioned the invisible idea of being a comic artist. I do think about that sometimes still. It's something I'm definitely interested in exploring sometime, but at my current stage in life, it isn't quite something that I am willing to dedicate a ton of my time to. But maybe in the future, I would like to nurture that ambition for sure. But if you are similar to that and you kind of relate to that, like maybe you have ideas for a comic or story that you want to draw, maybe you have an idea for some cool fan art for your favorite series, or maybe you just like have this whimsical idea that no one has ever thought of before and you want to see what it looks like, give yourself like 10 minutes, 15 if you're super cool, to doodle out and let your brain have some fun. Or if drawing really is not for you, then I would still encourage you to totally find some other small scale hobby, casual thing that is easy to get into to give your brain a break instead of frying it on that damn phone. Now, if you made it this far into the video, that makes me so happy. And if you drew alongside the video, that makes me incredibly joyous, and I am so happy that you gave it a shot. I hope that I've inspired you at least a little bit. I'm sure I'm going to be showing off my final drawings at this point. I hope they don't look too weird. I'm kind of nervous sharing my art, but I figured for something like this, I would be down to do it. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. That's going to be all for me. I'll see you later.